Okay, so now the fun part. This is the best part as we get into the 3 strategies to triple your retirement income. In other words, the swing. This is the part where we actually apply everything we just learned. So we've kind of got the building blocks, but now the strategy changes, because if you've ever climbed to the top of Mount Everest, which I haven't, but the strategy climbing up is different than coming down. It's a lot harder to come down off a mountain than it is to climb up the mountain. So once we've actually gotten to retirement, now we need to actually spend that money in retirement. We need to live on that money, and the rules change. Everything changes. So let's get into the good stuff. This is our distribution phase. So this is going to be this part. So we've already talked about this part, and now we're here. Okay? Doesn't matter how you did it. However you got there, now you're here. So now we're going to talk about this part, from retirement to when you die. And obviously we don't know when you're going to die, so we've got to take all of that into consideration during this phase of our plan. All right, now there are 3 strategies that we're going to talk about. The first is real estate income. The second is protected income value and creating a personal pension. And the third is uninterrupted compounding interest and leverage. So those are the 3 strategies. Let's go ahead and dive into them. First of all, real estate. Now, let's just say that you save your money into real estate, and instead of having $1 million in the stock market, you have $1 million worth of real estate. Now, how does that look in the retirement phase? Could you still make $40,000 a year off of $1 million if you charged rent? Obviously, it depends on where you live, but in our area, you could definitely make $40,000 a year off of $1 million of real estate. But here's the key. Every 5 years or so, what can you do to rent? You can raise rent. If you raise rent, your income goes up. You are able to keep up with inflation. You're able to triple your retirement income. And the best part is the assets, the real estate itself, actually continues to grow. My dad was an accountant for a property management company. He had about $50,000 in his 401k when he retired. He retired at 57 years old. How? Well, he had borrowed money, invested in some real estate. It did really well. And at age 57, he had enough money coming in from his real estate income to actually retire. From age 57 to age 72, when he passed away, his income more than doubled, and his assets, the value of his real estate, more than doubled during his retirement years. The best part is he left my mom all of that real estate income. She continues to get that income every single month. That is the power of real estate. Now, you may not want to be a real estate investor. You may not want to be a landlord, but you don't have to be a landlord. My dad has never unplugged a toilet. He was an investor in apartments. So all he did was invest in real estate through a property management company. You could find a group of investors, you could invest in real estate and have somebody else manage the real estate and still peel off an income during your retirement years. Here's the other cool part. Upon the death of my mom, the value of all of that real estate gets passed to the kids, income tax free, in what we call a step up in basis. There's no capital gains tax. They get what they call a step up in basis. So if the real estate was originally $500,000 when he bought it, and it grew to $5 million when my mom dies, we as kids do not have to pay capital gains tax from $500,000 to $5 million. we get what we call a new step up in basis at the 5 million. So if we sell all the real estate, we wouldn't have to pay any capital gains tax. If we waited a year later and the real estate was worth 6 million, then we would have a 1 million capital gains. Okay, that's how that works. So there's a lot of really cool things about real estate. Now I want to show you something really cool called the 401 condo versus the 401k. So let's take a look. Okay, so the 401 condo versus the 401k is just a play on words. It could be a 401 cabin. It could be a rental property. It's just how real estate compares to a 401k. So our assumptions are, let's say that we're putting away $2,000 a month into a 401k, or putting $2,000 a month towards a mortgage on a piece of real estate, an investment property. Let's just say that the 401k is growing at 6%, and so is our piece of real estate. It's also appreciating at 6%. Let's just also say that we are in an ordinary tax bracket of 20% and capital gains tax bracket of 15%. Now, the reason why that's important is because your 401k is taxed as ordinary income, so you would be in that 20% tax bracket, whereas your investment property, if you ever sold it, the capital gains would be at 15%, so a little more tax favored on the real estate. And let's just say that we're looking at 20 years, okay? So over here on the left, we have our 401k. That is what we call income reduction. You are not saving money on taxes like we talked about before. You are simply postponing your taxes until later. So it reduces your income by putting your money into your 401k, but it does not save money in taxes. Real estate actually has real tax deductions, real tax savings. You can depreciate the asset. You can do all sorts of things to benefit from the taxes when it comes to real estate. How about your 401k? It is tax deferred. That means that you're not paying taxes on the growth of the money. Also true with your real estate. It is also growing tax deferred. If your house goes from being worth $100,000 to $200,000, you do not pay any taxes unless you sell it. The internal rate of return on a 401k is actually going to be less than on the 401 condo because of the 20% taxes versus the 15% in taxes. Now, if you are in a lower, like a 10% tax bracket, then it would be the other way around. When you sell a 401k, now how do you sell a 401k? You spend it. When you spend a 401k, you are selling it, and you are 100% taxed as ordinary income. So when you take $30,000 out of a 401k, you are paying ordinary income tax on that $30,000. When you sell a piece of real estate, it is taxed at capital gains. That's why if your capital gains rate is lower than your income tax rate, that could be a huge advantage. When you die, all of your 401k money gets added to your income in the year of your death. Okay? All of the income, okay, all of the money when you die in a 401k is taxed as ordinary income. Think about that for a minute. That's huge. When you die with a piece of real estate, like I was just saying a minute ago, you get a step up in basis. That means that you don't have to pay capital gains. As a kid that inherits the real estate, you don't have to pay those capital gains. You get a step up in basis. There are limits. There are what we call participation limits on how much money you can put into a 401k. And there are current limits, but this changes a little bit on how much you can borrow and, more importantly, how much you can deduct. You can borrow more than $1 million, but you can only deduct $1 million as far as the mortgage or the tax deductions on your mortgage. You make contributions every month into a 401k. However, with the 401 condo, you could, have a friend go rent it out. You could use it, another business partner could go use your condo. You could trade them. There's all sorts of things you can do with your 401 condo. You get nice statements in the mail on your 401k, But with your 401 condo or your piece of real estate, if it's a cabin in the mountains, you could get pictures. You have all sorts of excitement there. There is no enjoyment during the working years. I don't know anyone that gets excited during the growth phase on their 401k, but you have a lifetime of memories to enjoy your cabin or your condo or your piece of real estate. You are locked out of your 401k until you are 59 and a half. You cannot get it without any penalties until 59 and a half. There's a 10% penalty and taxes on the money if you tried to get to it early. Whereas with your piece of real estate, you have the keys. Now, there are penalties to get to the money early. There are opportunities like renting it out. Okay, we're not even talking about rental income here. We're just talking about real estate in general. You could just go buy a piece of real estate, even if you don't want to be a landlord, even if you don't want to rent it out. You could just go buy a piece of real estate and have it be a vacation home. Or you could rent it out. You could have a renter in there. You could have Airbnb or VRBO, vacation rentals you could make money from. Mandatory distributions, it is 72. So when you have a 401k, even if you don't want to spend it, you have to start spending it because the government wants their money in a 401k. In a 401 condo, future family heritage, meaning you can pass the real estate on to your family. So again, just to kind of show you how real estate might compare to a 401k. Okay, so let's look at some pros and cons. Triple the retirement income, right? Because your rental income could increase. Uninterrupted appreciation, your asset continues to grow. With the 4% rule, your assets no longer grow. Your money in the stocks no longer grow because you're spending it. Okay? Tax deductions on real estate, tax deferred growth on real estate. If you do sell your real estate, you can buy more real estate with that money, and that's what we call a 1031 exchange, so you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to pay capital gains tax if you buy more real estate. And when you pass it on to your kids, they get what we call that step up in basis for inheritance. Now, what are some of the cons? Well, income tax on the rental income, right? So it's not tax-free income in retirement. You do have to pay income tax on that rental income. Maybe you don't want to be a landlord, but like I said, you don't have to be a landlord. You could just find an investment group and invest with that investment group and have a property management company manage it. Market timing. With real estate in 2008, the real estate was not worth very much. And if you needed to get to the money, like in my situation, the reason why we lost our house is because I had all this equity sitting there and I couldn't get to it because the house wasn't worth as much at the time. So I lost all my equity when the market dropped. How about tenant consistency? You know, you might not have a tenant. Maybe you live in an area where it's hard to always have consistent rental income. Maybe that gives you a little anxiety in your retirement years because if you're trying to live on this in retirement and you don't have a renter, well then you don't have a rental income. That could create some headaches there. Equity is only available if you sell it or if you can get a loan. What if the bank doesn't let you have a loan? You couldn't get to that equity if you ever wanted to get to it. Those are just some things to think about when it comes to real estate. All right, so that was real estate income. Now let's talk about protected income value and creating a personal pension plan. And then we will talk about uninterrupted compounding interest and leverage. All right, so a lot more to talk about.